Hey guys, Ricky Martin, security guy here. In today's video, I'm going to break down the difference between Security Plus and CISSP, kind of go over where there's some overlap and where they differentiate and which one is probably best depending on where you are in your career. So let's kind of jump into it. So the biggest difference is going to be right off the bat, CompTIA is kind of geared towards more of an entry-level certification. So somebody who's just breaking into the industry is going to be more likely to go after the CompTIA Security Plus. CISSP does have a barrier for entry if you think about it. You can write the exam at any point. If you don't have the work experience in the different domains, then you would have to get a job in that field and satisfy that criteria after the fact. So initially with this CISSP, if you did write that exam without the actual work experience, you'd end up getting an associate CISSP pending getting your work experience in the different domains or being able to demonstrate that work experience. So one of the things off the bat that I'll kind of go over, so with the CompTIA, the exam itself, it's a little bit more of an easier entry point. So it's about $300 for the CompTIA, which is not a small amount. Especially in today's times and with everything going on. CompTIA seems to be really good about trying to give people options. So they're doing a lot of, especially during the pandemic, during the COVID times right now, they're allowing people to defer payment. So I think they're partnering with PayPal, if I'm not mistaken, to give you credit to go after these certification exams. So there's multiple ones that they're offering this for. So on the first point, the price, CompTIA is a little cheaper, cheaper entry point, so it's around the $300 mark, whereas the CISSP is just under $700, so it's $699 for the for the CISSP. So big price difference. It's almost double the price. But again, this is kind of the premier certification in cybersecurity, especially around InfoSec and cybersecurity. CISSP is very highly regarded, especially more at the higher levels. So it's a lot, you'll hear a lot of analogies of this. A very broad exam, covers a lot of areas, not very deep technically, but it does go into a lot of breadth of topics. So the next point I wanted to kind of cover was the number of questions, because this is something that comes up quite often, especially when you get into certification exams. So CompTIA is 90 questions. Now, some of those may be adaptive. I know when I took it, going back about 3 years ago now, it was, from what I remember, it was pretty straight up. It was just 90 questions, whereas the CISSP is going to be adaptive. So that one is anywhere between 100 and 150 questions. So that's one of the big things with that one is it's adaptive as you go through, and a lot of people will tell you that makes it a lot trickier because it's kind of hard to gauge where you're at, and with those adaptive tests you can't go back and change any answers. So as you're going through, it tries to find your weaknesses and it tries to adjust accordingly. So it'll give you harder questions in areas that you're weaker to kind of see where you are and where you're moving towards. And if you start improving as you're going through the test. So that's a big challenge for a lot of people, is especially getting around that adaptive component and understanding that. A lot of people, you can read forums and exchanges, especially with other people who are in the industry. And a lot of times it'll be anywhere between 100. Some people go all the way 150 before the test stops. And that's kind of the crazy thing with those adaptive tests. It can stop at any point once you've either satisfied the criteria, or if it doesn't think you're going to be able to, it'll stop as well. So it can be gut wrenching when you're going through those exams and get to the end and find out, oh, I didn't make it. I've had some friends who've gone through that. It's tough. I personally went to 150 questions on my CISSP exam and wasn't sure what the outcome was until I got out. So it's definitely a nail biter if you want. So the other point is passing scores. Before I get to the passing scores, time limit. So the CompTIA is another one is 90 minutes. So you're short on time. It's very, you have to be very quick going through the questions. You can't spend a lot of time thinking about things or trying to run through scenarios. You have to kind of hit it and move on, and then kind of flag anything that you're not sure about to move to review at a later stage. With the CISSP, this one is 3 hours, so more time, but again, very difficult questions. You do have more questions in this one, and a lot of times there's going to be scenario-based questions. There's going to be different types of questions where you're going to have to take your time and think about it. And the big difference is, like I said before, is you can't go back and change any of your answers with the CISSP. Once you answer, you're locked in, you move forward, no going back. So you want to be very confident with your answers when you're going through that exam. With the CompTIA, with the Security Plus, you do have the ability to flag questions, at least from when I took it, and I believe it's still the case, to go back and review and change your answers. Sometimes, as with anything, you might be going through something and then something sparks. You go back and reread the question and change your answer because you realize something or something clicked in your head that triggered, something that you studied before. So getting back to passing scores. So with the Security Plus, passing score is going to be 700 on a scale of 900. With the CISSP, it's going to be very similar. It's 750 out of 1,000. Now, the other thing to keep in mind is it's hard to know, especially if you pass. Not that most people are going to be too concerned about it, but when you pass with the CISSP, you don't know how you scored in different domains. So it's kind of cumulative based off of all the different domains and the weighting between the domains, how the scores are attributed. So that's something to keep in mind as well. So similar with Security Plus, it's not going to give you any specifics unless you don't pass. Then you would get kind of a breakdown of what areas you need to focus on, similar to what you get with the CISSP as well. If you don't pass, it'll tell you which domains you may need to spend more time on studying, or which areas you weren't doing as well. And then I touched on earlier, the key thing around the two certifications is that entry level versus experience. Not saying you can't take your CISSP early on in your career, but it's probably better once you've been in the industry for a little while, because you can demonstrate the experience, and then you would get your full-fledged CISSP once you do write the exam and go through the verification and background and authentication, all that fun stuff to validate your credentials. With the CompTIA, there's none of that requirement as far as work experience. So somebody who knows IT or is looking to get into security, it's a easy entry point to write that exam. And there's a lot of people who have the Security Plus certification partly for that. One of the other things I wanted to touch on, which was kind of interesting, that I noticed, is for the Department of Defense, DoD, especially here in the US, it's a key requirement to have some of these certifications to satisfy some of those DoD requirements. So one of the things, if you look, the CompTIA Sec Plus satisfies a couple of those. So depending on where you are, and if you need these to satisfy any Department of Defense requirements, if you're government contractors or government employees, the Security Plus satisfies IAT level 2 and IAM level 1. Whereas the CISSP, like I said, because it is a higher level certification, does have some additional, satisfies additional criteria. So it actually meets DoD IAT level 3, IAM level 2, IAM level 3, IASAE level 1 and 2 as well. And then it also has an ANSI ISO IEC standards 17024 that it meets that criteria as well. So it covers a lot of ground, the CISSP, partly because, again, it is regarded as a higher level certification. Recently, it was just, there was an article that ISC put out that notified how it's now in the UK, it's actually recognized as the equivalent to a master's degree. So that just kind of gives you an idea of how much weight it carries right now. Security Plus is a great certification to get. It's a great entry point, and especially if you take other CompTIA certs, you can actually stack on top of that. So what I mean by stacking is if you take, say, for example, Security Plus and Network Plus, or A Plus and Security Plus and Network Plus, you get these additional certs that build off of those combination of certifications. So which is really nice. It adds to your resume, which is great to have those credentials. And it just shows that you have expertise in additional areas. So as you build your background and your certifications, and you go out and get additional certifications, this just goes to solidify that experience and validate that you have the skills, or at least the knowledge, to do some of these additional roles and have different responsibilities. So as I said, both great certs. CISSP is an awesome cert. It's a very hard to get one, and that's why it's so well regarded. At least in my opinion, that's what I've seen is a lot of people go after it, and it's kind of that challenge to be able to go after and actually achieve it. And a lot of people take a lot of time to dedicate to pursuing that. Security Plus, again, another great cert. It's a great entry point. A lot of people you'll see actually have both of them because they complement, and there is some overlap as far as topics and domains that you cover. So just my take on it is, if you're breaking into the industry, Security Plus is a great starting point and a great way to build into your career and into your certification background, and build off of that. And then once you either have the experience or the time in the industry, go after the CISSP. I definitely recommend it. It is kind of that hard challenge that it's kind of like the cup that everybody's going after, that takes a lot of effort and dedication to actually get, but it is definitely worth it once you have it. So yeah, that's gonna wrap things up. Appreciate your time. Thanks for checking this out, and make sure you hit the like button, subscribe, ask any questions. You know how to get a hold of me. I'm on Instagram, Ricky Martin the Security Guy on Instagram, as well as the channel on YouTube. feel free to reach out, and definitely stay tuned. I've got some other stuff coming up, working with some cool people trying to put some stuff together as well. So definitely check it out and keep in touch. Take care.